Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube. One of the co-hosts of the Enough to Keep Going weekly games podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube. Back with another episode. This week, it's episode number 282. 10-year deals for everyone. Plus, we'll be talking some Marvel's Midnight Suns gameplay, as well as some other stuff that we've been getting into. So without much further ado, let's get to it. Here with me, as always, I have my stalwart co-anchor and co-host, Mr. Towmaster99. How you doing, Tow?
I'm doing well. Co-anchor. Wow, that's a new one, I think. And do I get a 10-year deal? Is that what you're saying?
They seem to be handing them out like Pez, so I think I think there's some for everybody. But we'll be talking about those things later tonight as we go on. I'm a bit discombobulated because I've been out of the saddle for a little while, so I'm trying to figure out and remember where all the bells, whistles, knobs, and dials are. But let's get started tonight with our first segment, our main gaming experiences over the last week. Tal, we'll start with you tonight. You want to talk a little bit about a game that's on Game Pass, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so I have been playing Vampire Survivor, which has been out for, I think, forever on PC and possibly mobile too. I'm not sure if it came out on mobile also. I've been playing it on mobile also, basically because it's free. It's free on mobile. I actually would have bought it on mobile if it had been, purchasable, but it is free on there. So there is a DLC that you can pay for. I shouldn't say you don't have to. So I guess they're making money that way, but any other way, I don't see how they're making money on mobile. But I first played it on Game Pass this past week. I was just kind of, I've been playing, like Hogwarts Legacy, and I had kind of jumped back into Fortnite. But at one point, I was just like, I kind of want to try something different. So I was looking on there to see what was new, what had come out, and that was on there. It's like, oh, you know what? I've heard a lot of buzz about it, and I've learned about a lot of people talking about it. My one friend's been playing it lately, so I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. Kind of, I don't know. When I first saw it, I was just like, I'm not usually kind of this. It's kind of that reverse, shooter, hell shooter kind of a game where you're the one that's actually shooting all the enemies that are coming at you. So I guess kind of like, what was that? That old 80s game. What was it? Robotron? I think that was kind of like that, I believe. It was where you're kind of doing the same thing. But you could pick from different people, kind of classes, I guess, in some ways. So you start out with 3, I believe, maybe 2, and then as you kind of progress, you get money as you're playing through the levels. And then you can buy more people. They kind of unlock, so you can buy them and do different things. So you're kind of just on this level where you can kind of, it's isometric or not isometric, kind of top down, looking at your character, and all the enemies are just coming at you. There's ghosts, there's bats. Kind of start off easy, and then as the level progresses and as you level up, they start throwing harder enemies at you. So and then if you die, you just have to start over again. So it's that rogue. I don't know, light. I don't know which one this is. I can never get them straight. So, but it's kind of like that. So then you can jump back in. Obviously, kind of know what you did or didn't do correctly, and then kind of adjust and go forth that way. But then also, before when you're at the main menu, there's a power up option too, which I kind of just found out the last couple days. Even though I've probably been playing it since last Sunday or Monday. And I didn't notice it, or I thought maybe that was like a pay thing, so I was like, I didn't pay attention to it. But you can go into the power up, and they give you armor, and your attack is a little bit stronger, and you can put up your luck, which gives you the ability to, as far as I can tell, there's chests that spawn every once in a while, and I guess they spawn more often when your luck's higher. So there's stuff like that you can bump up. So I've been doing that now the past couple of days, and getting a lot farther. I think the highest level I've got was 22, I believe. 22 or 23 is the highest I can get. And at that point, there's just tons of dudes coming at you, tons of monsters and creatures. So it's kind of crazy. But, you can get all these different power-ups. The strongest one I've seen so far is the garlic. I know there's other ones. Like I was watching my friend play at one point, and he had all kinds of crazy things going on his screen. But when I was playing, it was the garlic is kind of just like this force field that kind of encompasses you. And as the enemies hit it, they die or at least take damage if they're too strong. So initially, if you can get the garlic right away, that's pretty powerful. You can pretty much kill everything in like one hit for the most part, first few enemies, and then obviously it gets harder. But you can power up as you go as you level up each time. So when you hit the level, it gives you a choice of at least 3, sometimes 4. I think that's another thing that the luck does. It gives you a 4th choice, but usually it's 3. And then you can pick from different powers, or once again, it's kind of the same thing as at the beginning, but these are more specific. So it gives you extra, like 20% or 10% extra life, or shields, or 10% extra attacks, something like that. And then just give you they kind of, as you progress, they give you they add on different things as you're playing. So it's kind of my new obsession on the mobile side. That's actually taken over Marvel Snap, which I've been playing religiously these past few months, or actually the whole first half of the year, basically. So I just kind of had to take a break from that game just because it was kind of starting to frustrate me a little bit. But I found a new mobile game that I can sit there and fiddle with for at least a few minutes or so. It doesn't usually take that long, maybe 5 minutes to get up to those higher level. Well, my higher level, at least for now.
So when you talk about the game being on mobile, I mean, it's not a mobile game, right? It's just, I mean, it is a regular full-blown console / PC game, but you're just playing it on mobile through Xcloud, right?
No, playing mobile I downloaded from the Play Store on my Android phone, so it's actually full-blown game.
Okay, all right. I didn't realize. So
it's not like all you're doing is moving your guy, so you don't really have to like press any buttons or anything. So it kind of works with mobile. So in that respect.
So I just want to make sure I understand, because I haven't. I mean, I've seen this game cross the headlines with reference to Game Pass, but I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. But so there is both a full blown console version and a mobile version.
Yes, correct.
Yep. Okay, and have you played both, or have you only played the mobile version?
I played both. Yeah.
And the versions are the same, relatively speaking?
Yeah, everything looks the same as far as I can tell so far. I've only gotten to 22 level, so I don't know if there's anything else past that right now. Yeah, they look the same right now. No cross progression or saves or anything like that, but I mean, otherwise the gameplay is identical so far.
Oh, really? So that's the weirdest combination. That was the combination that I was not expecting to hear. Yeah. I was encouraged to hear that we were looking at another kind of Diablo Immortal kind of situation. Not that the situation with Diablo Immortal was great, but at least the mobile version and the PC version were the same, right? But then your progression was concurrent, right? It was all one account. So it's weird to me that must mean would seem to mean that the mobile version and the console version are somehow being hosted differently, and that all that progression is not taking place on the same server, I guess.
Yeah, which I guess is kind of weird, but I mean, it's not like you have to sign up for any account or anything when you start playing. So I guess it makes sense, but I guess kind of doesn't either, because I mean, why would you have 2 different versions? But I guess that's what they want to do.
So when you say it's not tied to your account, so does it just key off of your Android account?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no developer account you have to sign into or sync with or anything like that. It just boom, you start up and you can go. So.
And with reference to gameplay, is this something that's kind of like a Diablo kind of game?
No. No. There is, because there's no loot or anything that you pick up. Not really. Like I said, everything is picked from as you level up. You just there's a screen that pops up and it's hey, you can pick this power up or buff or whatever you want to do at that point. There's no armor or anything like that. So individual stuff like that. So. And you don't have to press any, like I said, you don't have to press any buttons. All you're doing is moving your stick around, or if I'm playing on mobile, you just move the screen around on the screen itself. And there's a little on-screen stick that pops up. But that's all you're doing is moving your character around, and he just shoots automatically, or she, depending on what character you use.
Okay, all right. I think I'm getting in my head kind of what the game is like. So what I mean, what aspect of the game is vampire-y, so to speak.
I'm not sure because I haven't seen any. Well, other than vampire bats, I guess that's like
Okay.
the first enemy that you come across. But I haven't. There's like a vampire like on the the start screen, but I haven't seen any vampires so far in the game. At least not that I can tell, because it's like 8-bit-ish, maybe a little bit more graphics. So it's they're not super detailed, but if it's a bat, I could tell a bat. If it's like a skeleton, obviously I could tell that. But some of the other creatures just kind of all looked a little bit of the same, but other than like color palettes swapped or stuff like that. It's kind of hard to tell what something is, but they're just creatures coming at you, so you just got to defeat them.
At DBQ, it looks like we're still not hearing you. Sorry, man. Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties as you would expect, which is also causing me to have to reorient the name badges every single time. Okay, well, very cool. And you said it has kind of supplanted your place in the place in your playlist that Marvel Snap was occupying.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And then what's your plans for Marvel Snap? Do you think you're done with Marvel Snap, or are you just kind of hibernating until a new season?
Yeah, I'm just probably not even just till the new season. Maybe until the end of this current season. I might jump back in. It's kind of like I did originally when it first started. Well, when I first bought the first season, it was already like a few weeks in. Now we had like I think a week and a half to kind of finish through it, and I actually did it. Like it's pretty simple because you bounce through all the challenges they give you. You can unlock it all. So I'll probably just do the same thing. I was just kind of tired of the every time I get to close or to level 40, I just get like smashed all of a sudden. Like they put me against like the hardest people or people with like the hardest cards. And there's literally no way I could beat these people. So it's like, and I think it looks like on the next update they're kind of addressing that, where they're kind of trying to balance out the matchmaking a little bit better. So hopefully on the which I'm assuming will probably come next season. When that comes, even before that though, I'll jump back in and just kind of try to do it. So we'll see. I'll go back to it for sure.
All right, very cool. Anything else on Vampire Survivor?
Nope, that's it.
Good.
I do recommend it though.
Very cool. Well, speaking of seasons, I have been playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Season 2 Reloaded, and contrary to the problems that I was having before, where I was, I was a little sketchy on whether or not I wanted to show up every week on the podcast talking about Call of Duty or Halo Infinite. I did elevate this to the initial start of our gameplay experience segment because this is a season that just launched mid-February, and so it's actually newer content, in comparison to the other games that I've been playing. But also now on March 15th, they've also dropped Season 2 Reloaded. So this was a thing that I'm not sure if they did this during Modern Warfare, but they definitely did it during the Call of Duty game. Black Ops Cold War is like midway through the season. They kind of dropped, I guess, what I would call like a recharge. And normally that would be where they would, toggle some of the things that they were doing, maybe with an LTM or an LTE, a limited time mode or a limited time event, introduce a new map, etc. And so for this Reloaded, and there's a good chance that I haven't seen everything because it kind of dropped while I think I was busy playing Halo Infinite, so I just came back to it really this weekend when I realized that I had missed the start of a double XP weekend. So, but realizing that it was double XP, I got right on it like hotcakes, and wound up wrapping up the Season 2 Battle Pass, as well as kind of final, max leveling some weapons that I was working on, the SAB 50 marksman rifle, as well as the X12 and X13 pistol. So for the first time ever in this more modern era of Call of Duty, no pun intended, and by that I mean Modern Warfare, Black Ops Cold War, Vanguard, and Modern Warfare 2, I have finished and max leveled pistols, so now I can dual wield pistols. I've never I've never bothered investing that much time in the pistols before. But it's a pretty neat little gameplay mechanic. I've moved on to, I think I'm working on the 556 Icarus now, in LMG, trying to max level that weapon. There is a new map on there. I think it's called Himmelfort. I'm not absolutely positive. I think it's supposed to be somewhere kind of in the German Alps. It feels like it's a ski resort or something like that. It's a neat map in comparison to the original maps that rolled out with Modern Warfare 2. It's not like Valderus Museum or Tarak with these ridiculously long sniper lanes, from one side of the map to the other. So I'm sure people find that encouraging. Although it does have some kind of tricky sniper lanes where there's a point where you're up on an elevated level, I think by the bus or by the parking area. And then when people are moving across the interior of the ski lodge or whatever the building is, there are windows. And what people don't realize yet is they can actually be seen and sniped from all the way over in the parking lot. So, but it does offer a lot of areas to transit from one area of the map to the other. I haven't broken that map and studied it as much as I have things like Dome or Tarak or other maps where I can kind of know where people are spawning and understand what the snipe lanes. And I've spent similar time on Valder's Museum as well, so I haven't spent that much time with that map. But it's a pretty neat map. There are, in a kind of a weird thing that's going on with either with Call of Duty or with me or a strange convergence of both. There are limited time events and limited time modes in this game and this season. I just, for some reason, haven't gone over and participated in them as much, and I think that may be because I am so preoccupied with max leveling every weapon platform and every branch down that weapons platform, which is a meaty amount of content, right, to dig through if that's kind of a thing that you become occupied with. So I know there was an LT, I think there was an LTM of, where the map rotation was only shipment and dome, right? So it kind of kept you on those close quarters maps and kind of gave you the same kind of feel as your Nuketown playlist did on Call of Duty Black Ops. And so, I even though I may have benefited from that in trying to level some of like my pistols and some of your short range weapons, the map rotation on the other maps felt decent enough. In past years and maybe this year, you may feel obligated to kind of go down those paths to give yourself the best chance at leveling weapons. But I find, like, even say when, like, I would get Embassy, it was the maps. While I complained about them a great deal at the beginning, the maps really allow you to play a lot of different ways depending on just you changing, right? Instead of sitting and insisting for the map to change. I might suggest sitting and whining about the maps changing, right? Today I needed to do a challenge where I needed to have the I can't even remember what the perk is called now, where you're able to arm primary weapon categories for both your primary and your secondary weapon. But I needed that perk armed, and I needed to score 5 kills with the secondary weapon, and so
that overload. I think
it might be. It was called something in the past, and it's called something different this year.
Oh, okay.
But I wound up on Tarak, and my 2P was a submachine gun, the mini back, I think it's called, and that map has, like I said, has some ridiculously long sniper lanes, and you would think that there'd be no way to complete that challenge, but I actually went there, completed the challenge, did really well that round. About 3/4 through the round, switched back to my primary loadout, which, like I mentioned, was the Icarus and an X12, and did really well on the round. I just had to change my tactical approach to playing the map. It also helped that for whatever reason with that particular team, they for whatever reason seemed to not clamp down and lock down all the sniper positions, so I didn't have a ton of sniper fire coming in. That's another thing I should mention. Also keep an eye out for not just double XP weekends, but double XP weekends when it's free, because you wind up getting a lot of noobs jumping into the map and jumping into the matches. So you wind up with a ton of people like I did. Like I jumped in last night on Dome, and people kept coming out from the bunker while I was up on the catwalk on the Dome. And I just thought, like, eventually halfway through this match, like, these people will figure out that I'm up here and they'll stop flooding out of the. It was a free for all match. But you just get people who maybe I don't know how to. Maybe they don't know to watch the kill cam sometimes all the way through, or they just maybe just assume that I was going to get killed or whatever. But I wound up winning that match because I was able to pop people coming out of the bunker the whole time. So don't just pay attention to double XP, pay attention to free weekends because it's a good way to rack up a lot of progression. Any questions or comments, Tal?
So is that map you're talking about, the new one? Is that a totally original one, or do you know if it's like a made up of something in the past?
From the past, yeah, I don't know. I don't know, and I haven't pulled that thread. And I mean, it's kind of neat when those maps. Some people don't like when those maps come back because they're like, well, they're just recycling maps. They're not new maps. But I have huge blind spots because I dropped off of Call of Duty with Modern Warfare 2 and didn't come back to it until the Modern Warfare reboot. So all those maps seem to me to be new. But then
to you.
Right, but then when you go back and you look for like tactical information about how best to play the map, you find twice as much information, right? Because there's guides, tactical guides from when the map first came out, as well as the new ones. And sometimes there are slight changes. Some that people like, some that people don't like. People don't like the changes that they've made to shipment. I'm actually okay with them. It's almost it's a significantly different map, I think, than the version that I played. So it's all good, man. Of the PvP shooters that are out now, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Microsoft ATVI acquisition merger. Call of Duty is not just a matter of what comes out every year. It's a matter of that it's an incredibly mature product with a ton of legacy that it can lean on and a ton of content kind of in the trunk that at any moment, they can just kind of go back and rummage through that footlocker, and pull out content that they can dust off, upgrade, recycle, and it still provides a lot of fun, as a Call of Duty player. So that's a tough thing for anybody who is an indie studio or a new developer trying to come out to create a multiplayer PvP shooter that could potentially challenge that, right? Because you look at all the content. Like I said, I'm playing the multiplayer version, and they threw these weapon platforms and weapon progression branches in it, and I feel like with an adult work life, I feel like I can't keep up. Nor do I feel like it's necessary. Like I feel like for what you pay for the battle pass, there's actually more content there, right, than you're paying for. When I can't get to the LTMs and I can't get to the LTs, in years past I used to play hardcore a lot. I just don't even play hardcore that much anymore. Not because I don't like it, but just because I feel like I don't have time to get over to it. The Gunfight is back. I used to love playing Gunfight on Black Ops Cold War, and I just until I wrap up all the weapons progressions, I don't feel like I'm ever gonna make time, right, to get over to those things. So it's a good deal. For people playing COD, maybe not as good a deal if you're a developer making Splitgate, Rocket Arena, or Knockout City, in terms of being in that competitive market. So, Tao, any last questions before we move on to the news?
Nope.
All right, well, continuing on with the show. Unfortunately, I really wish DBQ could get back. Like I said, I feel horrible that it seems like by virtue of me coming back, his mic isn't working, which might be directly due to the fact that he's in this phone call with me, because I'm assuming you guys did the show a little differently from a technical perspective while I was out. So hopefully, um, hopefully we'll be able to get back in. Uh, so the headlines this week, and I unfortunately, because I'm so rusty, have not didn't bring up. I have the agenda up, but I didn't bring up all the news stories. Microsoft. This news story over on Shack News. Microsoft signs 10-year deals with Boosteroid and Nubitus cloud gaming services. Now, when these stories first came out, the meme that popped into my head, if you saw Guardians of the Galaxy and you remember Jabon Hanju's character at the beginning when Oliver Platt, when he and his galactic police officers have caught Star-Lord, pilfering from an ancient temple or whatever on some planet, and Star-Lord and Oliver Platt says, "Come on, man, I'm Star-Lord," and Jabon Hanju says, "Who?" And that's exactly kind of what I felt like when I read these articles. Boosteroid and Ubitus, like those sound like sicknesses or maybe strains of COVID. And so anyway, I'll start off with my comment with the quotes. The article reads at its start, and I quote: "As it continues to battle anti-competitive concerns, Microsoft has linked 2 more decade-long deals with third-party platforms. Ever since Microsoft announced its massive deal to acquire Activision Blizzard, several parties around the gaming and entertainment industries have come forth to oppose the deal on anti-competitive concerns. As Microsoft battles heat from Sony and foreign governments over its proposed acquisition, the Xbox creator has been inking deals with other platform owners to ensure that it won't be taking Call of Duty or any of its other newly acquired IPs exclusive following the closure of the deal. This week, Microsoft announced that it had signed 2 10-year deals to bring its games to cloud gaming service providers Boosteroid and Nubitus." Tal, I'll let you go ahead and start with any questions or comments before I do a big info dump.
Yeah, so I saw these, news articles during the week when they came out, but I didn't realize Ubitus was the cloud gaming company that was doing the Switch titles like Hitman 3 and Resident Evil 7, Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So I was like, oh, when I was reading this article, I was like, oh, I didn't realize that. So, which would mean, I could see them bringing like some of their single player games over to maybe this platform. But would they want to do like a Call of Duty through something like this? Like if it was on, I guess the modern Switch, maybe if it gets to a Pro Switch or Super Switch or whatever, they could do a regular version of Call of Duty. But doing it through the cloud, I don't know if that's really going to work because when I've tried multiplayer games through the cloud, it hasn't been the greatest experience, and a lot of times it just pretty much fails. But I don't know. Maybe that's the only thing they can think of for the Switch, at least for right now, and the interim.
Well, my thoughts on that first topic that you talk about, right, which is how does, let's say specifically, how does multiplayer PvP first person shooters work in the cloud? And there are a lot of naysayers out there who say, well, that will never work, and blah blah blah. I think what I try and kind of harken people back to is, remember fighting games used to not work online at all. Like, used to be just a horrible experience. And we eventually got that to work. I think my prediction is what will happen is that over time, the design paradigms and the specific way in which games are built today, collision detection, ballistics, hit detection, that type of thing, all of those things are going to change from a design perspective to accommodate the cloud, and there will be design patterns and frameworks that work for those types of games only to be played in the cloud. That is what we do in software engineering, right? I mean, as the environments change, you think about just a regular business application, right? Let's make it really super simple. Front end UIs used to not connect to databases through the cloud, right? Getting a JDBC connection to connect when you were trying to connect one software entity off-prem versus a software entity that was on-prem, those were fundamental differences in the way we had to design and orient those things through APIs. Those APIs work inherently differently than they do when we weren't taking the cloud into consideration, or even before we were taking data centers into consideration. So all those things evolve through the march of time. And so I think eventually it will be okay. You bring up another good point on Ubuntu, right? Ubuntu, as far as I can tell, Ubuntu is not a customer-facing cloud game streaming service. You don't go to Ubuntu like you do with GeForce Now or Xbox Cloud Gaming or Stadia and register for an account and then are able to stream, or Luna, and then are able to stream games from a library. This appears to be a company that is essentially a B2B arrangement where, as you mentioned, right, it provides the cloud lift for the Nintendo Switch. And so their customers are other platform owners, or maybe publishers or other developers, and they take care of the cloud end of the arrangement. So the thing that's curious about all of these deals, given that they are inherently being made with companies that have different business models and are of a different ilk, actually compete in different markets, right? So in that vein, Ubuntu is not a competitor with Boosteroid, right? It's two different markets and two different market segments. And so the overall good of any one of these deals is not equal. Not saying that one is good and one is bad, but they're not equal. So a curious nit is that the FTC has asked Microsoft for the documentation surrounding these deals, and Microsoft has failed to deliver them. I might not go so far as to say that they've refused, but they haven't done so yet. And I would imagine, I'll allow myself to speculate a little bit, because maybe they aren't as good as one might be led to believe. And that's simply from the fact, that's not saying that Microsoft is evil or dirty or hiding anything that's behind its back. It's because right now in the marketing and PR campaign, they're only presenting the positive side, the upside, right? We are further distributing Call of Duty and making it available in more places. And obviously, like, even when you talk about Game Pass or anything that you get, when you leave the conversation absent of what you have to give in order to get the thing, then it comes off as a more positive story. It's why we all use the language in terms of Game Pass, right? Oh, yeah, it's so awesome, I get that game for free. Well, obviously you're not actually getting the game for free, you're actually paying Microsoft the cost for a subscription. So, particularly when it comes to somebody like Ubuntu, I am curious as to what the tenets of the deal are. I'm curious to whether or not any of that deal is tied to Ubuntu moving its technology to Azure, right, to enable it, or having some other hook into a Microsoft adjacent market, that requires some compliance from Ubuntu. And I don't just think that because it's some wackadoodle idea that I've come up with out of nowhere, out of fear that Microsoft is evil. It's a tactic that Microsoft has used before. It's why in Europe, Office 365 was priced lower if you ran that workload on Azure versus if you asked to license Office 365 so you could run it on AWS or GCP. So I think it'll be interesting if all of these things come to light. Look, as a person who follows the gaming industry in the news, I love it when documents get subpoenaed, right? Because we find out all sorts of stuff. That Epic lawsuit, right? Lots of people were were critical of what Epic was trying to pull off. But at the end of the day, what we got access to was a bunch of stuff that we didn't know about before, including things like the Sony revenue parity clause that they charge developers and publishers if they want to enable crossplay, which I think maybe hugely important. Was hugely important to that case, maybe hugely important to this case as well. So I think at the end of the day, what I feel like what we need to know and understand to render, fully fleshed out opinions on this case is, we need all the information that Microsoft insisted that Sony provide, which is good. I wanted to see more than what the FTC required Sony to show. I wanted to know how Sony executives were incentivized via their the pay bonuses and things like that Microsoft asked for. I think it would be nice to know if, as a marketing and sales exec, if you were given bonuses for locking down exclusives. I think that gives a certain optic into kind of how the business operates. And I would like to also see what the tenets of these deals are, because I think there's more to these deals than just the good news story. And the analogy that I use, because it feels appropriate, and it maybe feels like one that I can use that might allow people to finally kind of understand some of the things that I'm saying we should be asking questions about, is if I'm a drug warlord, right, and I sell drugs in one of 5 territories, right, and then I make moves. And let's even back it out. Let's say I'm a drug supplier, right? And I make moves, and I also take over, as well as being the supplier who supplies drugs or guns to 5 territories. If I make moves and I take over one of the territories, now not only am I the supplier, but I am also in direct competition with the other drug lords, right? Or people buying guns. It works for both drugs or guns. Right. I use these analogies because I've been binge watching Sons of Anarchy. So
I was going to say, is this like a Far Cry in the future?
Right. So obviously, if I'm supplying meth, Walter White, right? If I'm supplying meth to all 5 territories, and what everybody's concerned about, what the other drug bosses are concerned about before, when we all come to the table to meet, is they're concerned that I'm going to give the customers in my territory a better version of meth than customers in their territory. And I say, look, I'm not going to do that. Why would I be incentivized to do that? I am going to cut deals with you and actually more territories to sell you all the same meth, right? How in the world do people not understand that the person that is first and most good for is the supplier of the meth, right? Who also concurrently owns one of the drug territories, right? My point is, me peanut buttering my supply of a singular product across a wider portion obviously gives me greater market share. And if I am both a supplier and a competitor, I can afford to do that and take a loss. Those are the types of things that regulatory agencies look at when they are evaluating anti-competitive behavior. If Amazon went and bought Random House, that would get the same level of scrutiny. If Amazon not only was a major distributor of books, but also tried to become a publisher of books or buy a significantly sized publisher on the market, that would draw a lot of eyes. So all of this is not to say that the deal should be approved or shouldn't be approved, but all of this is to say that there are questions that should be asked, particularly in this age, and this is where I mentioned my part of why I think it's okay for things to be different. Because a lot of people render opinions on, well, the FTC has never done this before. I'm like, look, whether you like it or not, Roe versus Wade just got overturned, right? It got overturned because in this country, we're allowed to ask questions about laws and reinterpret them. And Roe versus Wade became a law in the first place because in this country we said, should we be doing things the way that we have always done them before? It got overturned because of the same type of political dynamic. And so I don't think it's fair or reasonable to say the FTC should never look at a vertical merger. And I think particularly in this day and age where large technology corporations have superseded big oil, steel, banking institutions as the largest corporations in the world, where they have access to tons of digital data, where they are enabling new markets via new methodologies. And as far as I can tell, unless, I mean, the only next turnover that I can even think of companies that would rise to prominence would maybe be if the world really goes down the path of alternative energy. But I mean, these corporations are going to be in the seat for a very long time. They are multi-trillion-dollar corporations, which has never occurred before. And if you think of all the dystopian science fiction that's been written, right? Blade Runner, Alien, Waitani Corporation, Terminator. I think, and I mentioned those as jokes, but my point is I mean those jokes and settings come out of philosophical discussions about what the future of the world is, and one of the things that we should be asking at this point in our history and evolution is, what are we doing to prevent the future of everything going the route of mass consolidation and only being run by a very small number of mega corporations? And therefore that begs the question, should we be better policing and scrutinizing when an Amazon, a Microsoft, a Google gets its foot in a market where it can link that competitive environment to a key strength that it already has and leverage that to become a competitor that no one can challenge in that space or in that environment? And so again, to round it out, my whole point comes, these deals sound great because they are taking care of the, oh my God, Microsoft is a threat to take Call of Duty exclusive. Remember that one of Microsoft's legal tactics has been, hey, if you have a concern, regulatory agencies, roger that, we're going to solve that concern, right? If you want to say we're in a supermarket and ignore Nintendo, great, we'll ignore Nintendo. We'll present a slide that shows if I ignore Nintendo, then Sony has 80% of the market share, right? And now it's an 80-20. That's a better optic. But I worry that by solving the concern about exclusivity, that the game has become, okay, so we won't take the thing exclusive, but what we'll do is we'll put it everywhere. And what I keep bringing up is, once Call of Duty is everywhere and accessible via a very cheap price. And again, what I go back to is the comment that I made in the gameplay segment where I said Call of Duty is a mature product. It has a ton of content behind it. You can't just make up a Call of Duty overnight. PUBG cannot become Call of Duty in 5 years, in 10 years. And in fact, as an example that people point to, PUBG is a thing that I'm starting to think was lightning in a bottle and is likely only to happen once. Because again, if you do a deal like this, and I put Call of Duty everywhere, and I make it incredibly cheap to access, why would anyone ever go play Splitgate? Why would anyone ever go play Rocket Arena? Why would anyone ever go play Knockout City? If they can access the key flagship content and premier game that year after year after year after year, even in a bad year like Vanguard, is one of the top 1 or 2 games by revenue, if everyone can access that, they have less incentive to go try something else. And if consumers have less incentive to go try it, suppliers have less incentive to invest their money in making it. All of that culminates in a point where we all have less choice. Call of Duty already sucks a lot of the air out of the room. And these type of deals and this type of behavior and linking it to Microsoft's war chest and being able to follow a loss leader strategy presents an anti-competitive threat that also needs to be scrutinized and looked at, not just exclusivity. So, sorry, I know that went on a long time, but I had a lot of stuff to get out. Tal, any more questions or comments?
No, I think you said it. Yeah, quite well.
Okay, next story. That's the last time we'll talk about Microsoft.
Well, today.
Today, right? Gosh, I wish this case was over tomorrow.
No.
Over on VG247, Nintendo thinks Zelda. Wait, oh, clicked the wrong story. Sorry. Actually, I scrambled the order the wrong way. It's one way on the docket and a different way on the podcast. Sorry. Nintendo expands Switch Online Game Boy. Wait, Nintendo expands Switch Online, Game Boy, Super NES, and NES service with 4 more titles. Out now. So again, this article over on VG247, I quote, out now, Nintendo has announced a new batch of games for the Switch Online service. The latest additions are part of the standard tier, adding 2 Game Boy titles, a Super NES title, and an original NES game. This includes the 1995 Game Boy release Kirby's Dream Land 2, Data East 1991 Game Boy game Burger Time Deluxe, the 1993 Data East game Side Pocket, and the classic Namco arcade shoot 'em up Xevious. Tao, you were the first member of the cast to jump feet first into the Game Boy titles and whatnot on Nintendo Switch Online. Does this spark your interest? We have had a lengthy discussion before I took my sabbatical from the podcast about your perception of value and your feeling of these games finally showing up in the Switch Online service. Does this kind of rub your rhubarb, so to speak, or is this kind of a nothing burger as far as these games showing up in the online service for Nintendo?
Yeah, I actually remember a couple of these games. So Xevious, I remember playing back on the NES. I think classic game, and kind of one game I'm actually kind of excited for is Side Pocket. I actually really remember playing that a lot back on the Super Nintendo. So I definitely I haven't had a chance to check it out yet, but it was a pretty good for the time pool game, billiards, depending on where in the world you are. So yeah, I definitely want to go back and play those. The Game Boy games, I never had an original Game Boy, so I think I mentioned that before. So I'll probably go back and try them. But I'm not super excited for those ones. Not that, like I said, not that I think they're bad or anything. It's just I didn't have a Game Boy, but I'll definitely want to go and check them out. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for of all the games, the Side Pocket, the pool game.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty interested in these myself. Kirby's Dream Land is always a popular hit in the house, so just positioning it somewhere where the kids can access it is always cool. Burger Time was one of the original classic games. It kind of evolved and kind of perfected on kind of the Donkey Kong formula, but in a time right where that was like the only popular game, like Burger Time came along and was kind of one of the few games to kind of challenge Donkey Kong. So I'm interested in going and taking a look at that. Side Pocket actually looked pretty good from the screenshots that I saw, so I'm actually interested to see if they've worked any kind of upgrade magic on that to make it look better on your television screen today. And Xevious kind of harkens back to a lot of the games that eventually turned into my love for flight sims, space sims, things like that. And so I forget what the game was. It was something that started with a Z, but it was like an isometric like 3D like overhead game.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember what it's either. It's like a space, right? You're in space, I think.
You're in space, and it was like a thing where you actually had some elevation control, so you would have to sometimes go down, and I can't remember what the name of it was, but yeah, but Xevious in that game, I always loved and enjoyed. So it'll be cool to check these out. I'm looking forward to checking those out on the Switch. Our second Nintendo story, Nintendo thinks Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is worth that hefty price tag. This story also over on VG247, and I apologize. So the expand Switch Online to include Game Boy, Super NES, and NES games. That was a story over on Nintendo Life. This story is over on VG247. And I quote, Nintendo is releasing The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom at a higher price point, but Nintendo of America President Doug Bowser says it will be worth it. Games are getting more and more expensive to buy, in part because they're becoming more and more expensive to produce. It was only a matter of time before this hit Nintendo in some way, and it soon will, as The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom will be priced at £60, an increase of £10 compared to its predecessor and other first-party Switch titles. In the US, that translates to an increase in price of Nintendo games from $60 to $70. Speaking to the Associated Press about a range of topics, Bowser was asked about the new price points and how Nintendo arrived at it. His response was, we look at what the game has to offer. Bowser responded, I think fans will find this is an incredibly full, deeply immersive experience. The price point reflects the type of experience that fans can expect when it comes to playing this particular game. This isn't a price point that we'll necessarily have on all our titles. It's actually a fairly common pricing model, either here or in Europe or other parts of the world, where the pricing may vary depending on the game itself. I actually found that comment a little surprising. But Tal, let me get your take on that news first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super excited for this game just because I never finished Breath of the Wild, and the game, while the game was good, I did like it, I did enjoy it. It just kind of wore me down with the constant weapon breaking, and yeah, I know there's back and forth on the weapon breaking thing, but after playing other games of the same type without that, I don't want to say issue, but without that ability, trying to go back to that, assuming if it's the same thing or not, I don't know. I don't know if they've really said or not. Just kind of a little disheartening for me, and I don't know. I guess I kind of had just a weird thing. What just how he said that, like we're gonna take this game by game. It's like, well, shouldn't it just be all of them? Or I mean, I don't know how you can justify that. Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's like an online game, that's it's only DLC or not DLC, but like a digital game, maybe. But I just thought that was kind of a weird comment myself, just in that regard. So.
And I actually think it was a weird comment that I would think most gamers would not like, but actually should. And what I mean by that is, gamers have often suggested this very thing, that, oh, well, this game should be it'd be fine for this game to be $70, but this game shouldn't be $70, right? Or, if a game's smaller, it should cost less. If a game has less content, it should cost less. And what I have always offered as the reasoning why a tech company wouldn't do that, because again, I spend a lot of time pricing software and services that we sell. Anytime I have a COTS product, a commercial off-the-shelf product, I'm not interested in doing bespoke pricing. I'm not interested in selling it for different prices to different customers. I'm not necessarily interested in every time I have a different SKU that complicates tons of things. It makes accounting more complicated. It makes how I package it more complicated. When I talk about software, not necessarily in this case, but in other models, it makes configuration management more difficult. But in general, tech companies are less incentivized when they don't have to have multiple pricing models. And so I've always said it's highly unlikely that the industry will ever convert to a point where a single vendor has $70 games that it sells, tries to identify AA games as being sold at $50 and then tries to identify, smaller titles that it sells at $30. It does a little bit of that, but it seems like it is very much case by case. Very much dictated by business cycles, very much dictated by other optics. And so, kind of like Tal, you said, in the vast majority of cases, what the platform's holders do, what publishers do, is they just say, look, every game is going to be $70. Any instance where it's not $70 is an exception. It's not the norm. So it's very interesting to hear Bowser almost say, games might continue to be $60, right? And then we may have a few kind of special titles that we price at 70. And another one of the problems, right, with doing that is customer perception, right? Because then you start getting yourself in the lane where a customer says, well, this game shouldn't have been $70, right? And at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to what I mentioned, right? The reality of the perspective of the software supplier or tech company supplier is as well. I don't know that I really care that you think it should be $70. Like what I care about is how many people buy it, and if enough people buy it at $70, I go back to things like the Last of Us remake, right? Where there were a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, this game doesn't need to be made." Who asked for that? And then the game sells very well. You look at initial sales for Forspoken, right? Game sold decently well at launch. You look at Gotham Knights in particular, right? Was the number seven game in terms of games sold overall for 2022, and that's a game that came out the last week of October. Right, so it covered a ton of ground in comparison to other games that came out earlier in the year. So, just injecting the variable pricing dynamic into that, I think, like I said, makes things more difficult. And in particular, what it makes the formulas and the calculations over projecting profit, right, more complicated, which goes into the guidance that these companies issue each quarter, right, for investors. So it's very surprising to hear Bowser say that to not expect $70 as the norm. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I don't know. Any other comments, Tal, on that?
No, yeah, just to piggyback. I mean, it's just it is gonna be interesting to see like which titles you pick. Is that gonna does he mean, or I shouldn't say does he mean, but will that mean it's going to be Zelda, Mario, the Mario games? Those are going to be $70, or will we see, a lower priced Mario game, like mainline Mario game that comes out that's still under $70 or not? I mean, you kind of figure that probably not, at least for the mainline games. And then something like maybe like Kirby, that'll still be $60 or something. Something maybe that's popular, it does well, but it's not huge like their top, their top. Three, I guess you could say, like Zelda, Mario, and Pokemon, even though Pokemon's not totally theirs, but still, they partner with that company. So just to see what gets picked, it's going to be interesting.
Well, one of the things that I think will be curious to see is, for example, you could definitely make a strong argument that the overall functionality of Animal Crossing at launch was fairly limited, right? I mean, I have a hard time believing that Nintendo in this new model wouldn't charge $70 for that game, right? And then you ask the question, well, okay, from a functionality perspective, should that game have been, if that fast forward to that game launching now, right? It's a $70 price point IP, right, in terms of its popularity and how much people want it. But is the functionality of that specific title, would it have warranted a $70 price tag? And I would definitely say no. And then by the same token, right, what is Nintendo to do about titles like that then deliver more content, right? Did Xenoblade 3 get new content?
I don't know if it did, but I know it was going to. I don't know if it came out yet.
Okay.
They announced DLC.
Yeah. So then you have other games that, like Xenoblade 3, which is like 100 hours, right, of gameplay time, and then is going to drop, more content. Then you have Animal Crossing, which, basically they held you hostage to access that content by making you subscribe to the service almost. So
even just the gameplay itself is like, because it's real time.
Right.
You have to wait for October for the the Fall Fest or Christmas for their whatever their Christmas stuff it's called. So that's another thing, and that's actually a game you can actually think maybe it could become a live service game. Like maybe they want to go that route, and I don't know if they see like that, just that game in general. Like if they see like that was a huge hit back in 2020, but why was it a huge hit? It was because of COVID, because everybody was inside, for the most part. I mean, it was still a big game. Like it probably would have sold well, but it wouldn't have sold as well as it had most likely. So, but then on the other side, the flip going over, okay, so now we have all these people that have played it. Well, maybe they're going to continue to play it. Maybe they've jumped into the Nintendo ecosystem, so maybe we can charge $70 for for this because it's it is popular. But I mean, that's just a crapshoot. Like that's you have all kind of analysts and stuff that I'm sure are crunching numbers and looking at all that data to see what they can do and how they can charge and what they can do with that game. So
Yep, interestinger and interestinger. Probably the thing that's most poignant about that is again in this dynamic where everybody pays so much attention to the Microsoft ATVI merger. Just a reminder that there are other things going on right in the news cycle in the gaming industry that it might be interesting to pay attention to. So with that, let's move on to segment 3 and wrap up the show with our remaining games that we've been playing. I'm going to try and wrap this up in, I don't know, 6 minutes is my target. First game I'll talk about a little bit is Marvel's Midnight Suns, which I won't go into a ton. I've only played like the tutorial and the first kind of at the HQ segment. I've been playing this game on my Steam Deck for various reasons. I've been playing it in docked mode, and so I've actually been setting it up to a 2560 by 1440p 144 hertz display, which is much more than the Steam Deck needs or can push. But I just recently upgraded my monitors at the beginning of this year, so I had some more performant ones left over. So
Steam Deck's, is it only 1080p?
Yeah, it's.
Where does it go past that?
Yeah. It goes under that in some cases. So I want to say my resolution was something. I want to say for this game it was something weird, like it was like 18 something by 732 or something weird like that. So. But that all being said, the game looks fine, right? Again, it's Marvel's Midnight Suns. It's not Call of Duty or Halo Infinite or God of War Ragnarok. And I'm also conscious of like what I have plugged into the monitor, and don't set my expectations ridiculously high. I think what I was most impressed by was I had lots of doubts about whether or not this game was going to get traction with me personally, not whether it was a good game or not. We talked a little bit before about how I kind of didn't grok with the whole premise. As a comic book nerd, I was not super happy with the super popular characters being junked into it, and kind of shouldering aside an opportunity to kind of bring the actual Midnight Suns to the fore. But I think having played the intro, that it feels like kind of if you've read a lot of crossover and event type of comic books, or just seen an MCU movie, I think this is fine for that. Like as the MCU moves forward, I can absolutely see an intro scene that has the Avengers in it, but then introduces like a new group of characters or a new character, and then you see the really popular ones fade away, and then kind of focus in on that one major character or new character. So it all felt kind of native and organic to me. Didn't feel I felt it was going to be ham-fisted. I also thought the card system in terms of gameplay mechanics was going to feel kind of hokey. But it didn't. I felt like it was explained decently well. Like, and I want to say, I think it was when I was talking to DBQ in the chat. If you box, for people who've ever boxed, you don't just sit there and throw right hooks all the time, right? You jab, right? And then as you get pumped up and energized by jabs landing well, then you decide to pop off, right? Every once in a while. But that's also because doing that type of move takes more energy, right? And leaves you drained. And so that's kind of the way the card system is crafted in its applicability in Marvel's Midnight Suns, and that makes total sense to me. So I'm kind of looking forward to utilizing the different characters and using them in different combinations. The dialogue, while not quite Guardians of the Galaxy, felt way more well scripted than I expected. Almost to the point where kind of like we used to say about like Mortal Kombat 11, right? That you could just rip all those cutscenes out and you would actually have like a fairly decent animated movie. Um, that's what it kind of feels like a little bit with Marvel's Midnight Suns. It's like I said, it's not quite Guardians of the Galaxy level dialogue, but it does a good job capturing the MCU, Marvel, humor, which is also kind of in the Joss Whedon style, and I'm good with it, right? I particularly like the intro scenes between Bane and the Chosen One, so I intend to put some more time in on that game. Like I said, happy to have it on the Steam Deck, right? Where I can play it in portable mode and take it with me. I do have some trips coming up and whatnot over spring break in the summer, so looking forward to that. Tao, you've been playing one of your oldies but goodies, so anything new on the Fortnite front?
No, actually, I had changed that to MLB The Show. Sorry, that was a last minute change on my part. But no, I actually have been playing Fortnite. The reason I originally put it on, just real quick, is the new season dropped, kind of like with the Modern Warfare 2. A new season, new stuff. And I've been playing with my friends lately, or my friend with another kind of friend of a friend. And we've actually been doing pretty well. The other night we actually had like at least 3, and I think maybe even four victories in one night, which is pretty rare, at least for us. So we're doing pretty good. So, and we kind of, since there's only 3 of us, we're doing trios, obviously, and kind of just strategizing how to follow the storm and position ourselves and stuff like that. But I've also been playing. I started jumping back into MLB The Show 22. Just kind of anticipation for the new one's coming out. I think next week, I believe, maybe even the week after. 23 is coming out, so that'll be on Game Pass once again. So that's why I'm playing it. I was actually contemplating on picking up the new one on Switch. It did come up on the Switch last year. I didn't pick that one up, but I was thinking of getting it this year, baby, just to have something. As much as I was able to play the Show 22, and I have been playing. I mean, if I had it on the Switch, I'd be able to play like a few games like almost every day, kind of like how I do with Rocket League, or at least the Show games. Because obviously you don't have to play through a whole a whole game. You just play your part. Whatever position you have been chosen. So. I was thinking of doing that, and actually, when I was playing 22, I think I'm almost about to be called up to the majors finally, because I'm in AA right now, which would be a first because I didn't get a chance to get to I didn't even get a chance to get the AA on 21, so it kind of exciting that I was able to kind of work my way up. So that was another reason I kind of want to do it on the Switch too, is just so I can finally make that leap, and I might even hold off on playing 23 and play a little bit more of 22 just to see if I can hit the majors and just to see how that dynamic is, if it really changes all that much, and just kind of play through some of those games too. But as far as like the challenges and stuff, they've pretty much halted all the weekly challenges. I'm not sure if the daily challenges are still changing or not. I hadn't really checked those or not, but or not daily. There's kind of like 2 sets of weekly challenges. There's like the challenge you can do one. It's only one challenge. And you can actually win like in-game, I think, money, and I think sometimes there's physical prizes for that stuff. But then they have just like monthly challenges. That's what I should say. Monthly, and under those monthly, there's like weekly challenges that you can do throughout the week. So those ones, I'm not sure about those monthly challenges if they've stopped to. More than likely, I mean, you don't get anything. It's just like gameplay stuff, and those challenges are just like. They give you like a scenario from back in the past, and it's like, hey, you can replay this, and you kind of try to do what you need to do for that scenario. So it's kind of cool just kind of see that stuff, but that might still be kind of just dribbling in since it's like nothing major, but it's kind of a nice break just to kind of do, hey, I got to hit 2 doubles, or I got to hit a double and a single in one at bat. So it's kind of nice just kind of have that kind of challenge. So just kind of going through that also. So it's been fun.
Very cool. And to wrap up, so the last thing that I've been playing was, I think last night, I finished up my replay of Halo 2 Remastered on the Xbox Series X. Sorry. And so before Halo Infinite came out, which now I'm realizing was... No, yeah, before Halo Infinite came out... I was starting to do a rerun through of the entire Halo series. I didn't play the entire series back in the day. I kind of really only acknowledged 1, 2, and 3 as kind of the real series as far as I was concerned. I played 5, but I'd skipped Reach, ODST, Halo 4, and I said, well, let me play this through, even though philosophically absolutely opposed to this notion that runs around that you should watch the Marvel movies in the chronological timeline in which the events would have actually occurred in the MCU. I'm like, no, you should watch them in the in the manner in which the movies were released. That's the way they were meant to be watched. So. Uh, in contrast to that philosophy, I'm playing Halo in the order in which the events actually happened. So I actually started my Halo replay through by going back and playing Reach, and then playing Halo Combat Evolved, and started playing Halo 2. And then I didn't finish my run through, and then Halo 2 Infinite came out, and I kind of dropped off and left it alone. I've since picked at Halo 2 Remastered here and there along the way. It's really not my favorite game in the franchise. The middle sections of it are particularly not my favorite. And let me first say, I think anybody who's watched the show is maybe knows, but I'm just not a fan of games where you play more than one character, or that splits your time up between like playing one and then going. I get just not. I'm just not a personal fan of that design style, and also a lot of times because that is typically coupled with a story framework of one of them being the anti-hero, and just narratively, I don't agree with the concept of the anti-hero in most works of fiction. So, however, the Arbiter I don't think was quite painted as an anti-hero, and he's voiced by Keith Jackson. So I mean, I don't know how much better you can get to that. So at any rate, I did finish my run through a Halo 2. I was actually surprised that my memory of these games is very weak. I've forgotten that you end the game playing the Arbiter. So the final two levels, you're playing as the Arbiter, maybe 3. And then Halo 3 opens with you picking back up with Master Chief. I'd also forgotten things like it was etched in my memory that Halo 2 was the only one that allowed you to dual wield, and they took that away in Halo 3. And so, unless it was a redesign, which I don't think it is, I don't think Halo 3 has been remastered at all. They didn't actually take double wielding away in Halo 3. They actually locked it to same weapon. So in Halo 2, you could mix and match weapons, and you could dual wield anything. But in Halo 3, you could only dual wield weapons of the same type. So that was interesting to have that revisionist history washed away from my memory. And I'd forgotten that the Arbiter was actually in Halo 3 as well, at least in the opening few levels. So having a good time continuing that playthrough. Installed the Master Chief Collection on my Xbox Series X. So I've dropped. I've dropped PlayStation Plus Premium. I may pick that back up again. I still have it. I just dropped the auto renewal. But as far as Game Pass goes, I'm kind of reminded how much I enjoy kind of going back and picking up some of the old games that I either missed or games that were nostalgic favorites of mine. And I retain that subscription anyway because I do want to get over and try out some more Xbox Cloud gaming now that Stadia has gone away, and just kind of check those things out. And then the last thing I'll just mention as by the way, I did pick up, not pick up, but I have spent some time going back to Diablo 3 now that we're on the doorstep of Diablo 4 releasing, because I've been saying for quite some time that I needed to spend some time with Diablo 3. It's always just been kind of a pick up and play kind of thing. I've never really stuck with it for any length of the campaign, but I'm going to try and take some of that on before I potentially dive into Diablo 4. I'm still waiting to see kind of what the news and the take is on Diablo 4 out amongst the community before I agree to dive deep into that. So we'll see how that goes. Tao, anything else you want to mention or go through tonight?
Nope, all good.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for joining in. Next week, I will be hosting again. Supposedly, I wrote myself in to take over host next week since I missed a couple of rotations. Like I said, while I was out kind of wandering the desert, trying to figure some things out. So potentially that will be the plan, and hopefully DBQ will get his stuff sorted out. He did mention, and I've forgotten, that he is on a new PC that he just got last week, I think. So it's always interesting when you first try and come into the podcast on a new PC. But hopefully we will have things figured out and have things wired up so we can get back to our full crew. So thanks, everybody, for joining in. For anybody who happens to swing through the live stream, we appreciate you. For anybody who happens to watch the archive version of this podcast on the E2KG Network podcasting channel on YouTube, we appreciate you as well. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can just receive a notification whenever we post new content. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. Play the games that you like and come here to talk about the games that you love. Once again, my name has been Game Logic from the Rounding Off Infinity Gaming channel on YouTube, here with my co-host, Towmaster99. Until next time, good night, good luck, and good gaming. That's going to do it for us. We're out of here.